With 1,107 days until the 2028 presidential election and the presumption Donald Trump cannot run again, the buzz around potential candidates is getting louder. Now, Trump keeps hinting about who might succeed him. And then among the folks on the Democratic side, 2 Californians are also hinting at possible runs.
I'm looking forward to who presents themselves in 2028 and who meets that moment. And that's the question for the American people.
Is it fair to say after the 2026 midterms, you're going to give it serious thought?
Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise. I'd just be lying, and I can't do that.
When are they going to see a woman in charge in the White House?
In their lifetime, for sure.
Could it be you? Possibly. Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not.
But you say in your book, I'm not done.
That is correct. I am not done.
Joining us now, Julie Roginski, Democratic strategist and author of the Salty Politics newsletter on Substack. So, 2 Californians, you know, they've got name recognition. They've got a Rolodex for people who still know what that is, full of donor names, right? But with an electorate increasingly sick of what they see as the extremes on both sides, and California having a reputation for being the most liberal of liberal Democratic states, can somebody from California win?
Sure. I'm not sure if it's either of those two, but somebody from California could win. Look, I think what you're seeing right now is a desire in the Democratic Party for somebody who's going to animate the electorate. And by that, I mean somebody like Zohran Mamdani. I'm not remotely talking about his views or his positions. I don't agree with a lot of them. But somebody who can mobilize a whole cohort of people who have not been mobilized before. Somebody who could energize not just the base, but bring in new voters who potentially were just sick and tired of the old way of doing politics. And, you know, who that person is, I do not know. I don't know. But I do know that that is what people in the Democratic Party are looking for. And they're also looking for somebody who's not going to just be anti-Trump, because that's not enough. It's great to be anti-Trump if you want to win a congressional race, but I don't know that it's enough. We'll find out in Virginia and New Jersey if it's enough to win an election where people are actually looking for solutions and not just to kick the other side.
You know, it was also interesting when I was listening to Congressman Eric Swalwell. He's a former presidential candidate himself, right? He said on X, don't even think of seeking the Democratic nomination for president unless you pledge to take a wrecking ball to the Trump ballroom on day one, or, as Ruben Gallego has suggested, rename it the Barack Obama ballroom. He said that would really get to him. I wonder, with everything so heavy in politics, how much does a sense of humor help?
A sense of humor definitely helps. What also helps, look, I think Swalwell is absolutely right that people are beyond angry and they want accountability, right? And they want justice. It's not retribution the way Donald Trump promised, but they do want accountability, which they did not get during the Biden years for all of the things that Donald Trump did in his first term and now how much he's exponentially done more in the second term. But that's not enough. That is a start. And I agree that ballroom better be torn down. That arc to Trump, if it ever goes up,
not going to be torn down.
It's going to have to be at least degilded. Let's put it that way. And then that arc to Trump that he's putting up, I don't even understand what that is. We got to look at that. But the point is, that's not enough, right? That kind of feeds the base and tells the base that, yes, we understand and are taking seriously your concerns about this authoritarianism that Trump is imposing single-handedly, and the ballroom, of course, is just one example of that. But look, people, you just had a segment on this right now, people are starving to death. We are about to have SNAP benefits cut off. Food banks will not be able to make up the shortfall.
Quick Head Start.
Medicaid is being cut. Medicare will soon be cut. Medicare Advantage plans are going away. People are going to be sick, and they're going to be dying, and they're going to be starving, and in the wealthiest country on earth. So we better find a candidate who needs to provide specific solutions as to how we address that. I'm not talking about a 20-point plan. I'm talking about something that gives people hope and understanding that he or she will address their issues in a real way that connects with voters. I don't know who that candidate is, but I know that's the candidate who's going to get the nomination in 2028 and hopefully win the election.
We've only got a minute left, but I want to play quickly what President Trump said today about the Republican ticket.
Well, we have great people. I don't have to get into that, but we have one of them standing right here. We have J.D., obviously. The vice president is great. I think Marco's great. I think, I'm not sure if anybody would run against us. I think if they ever formed a group, it would be unstoppable. I really do. I believe that. I would love to do it. And I have my best numbers ever. It's very terrible. I have my best numbers. See, if you read it, am I not ruling it out? You'll have to tell me. All I can tell you is that we have a great group of people.
Marco Rubio has a very good, resting face. He just, didn't even respond to that. But the question is it Donald Trump to decide who succeeds him as the nominee?
Nobody's going to succeed him. He's going to succeed himself. Let's just be real. He's not building that ballroom because he's planning on leaving. He's not going anywhere, and nobody's going to get him out of there. And by the way, the Supreme Court says you can't run again. He will just ignore the courts. And I'm happy to see Marco Rubio. I thought Steve Witkoff was our Secretary of State, so I'm happy to see that he's appeared and popped up somewhere. But he's not going to be the nominee. J.D. Vance is not going to be the nominee because Donald Trump is not going anywhere. And I understand that sounds crazy and wacko, but think about all the other crazy, wacko things that this president has done that we could not believe he'd ever do. And you see why he's going to run again in 2028, and he's not going anywhere unless, the ravages of time take him away. He's not leaving that White House.
Julie Roginski, thank you. Well, coming up, tensions now escalate.